Across eastern Ukraine, the land is scarred by war. Towns and cities are in ruins, showing the marks of constant fighting. The cold winter air hangs heavy, a big difference from the bright explosions that light up the night sky. In the trenches, Ukrainian soldiers huddle together to stay warm. Their faces are serious, but they're determined. They're fighting for their homes, their families, everything they hold dear. The booming sounds of artillery echo across the frozen ground. Each explosion reminds us how easily life can be lost in this war-torn country. Even with the constant attacks, the Ukrainian spirit remains strong. They are determined to protect their land, their freedom, their future. The fighting is worst in the Donbas region, where Russian forces have been trying to take over for months. Towns like Bakhmut and Soledar have become symbols of strong resistance, their names forever linked to this terrible war. Even Christmas Day wasn't safe from the violence. Russian missiles fell on Ukrainian cities, aiming for places where regular people live. Families having Christmas dinner had to hide in basements and bomb shelters. The happy holiday feeling was replaced by fear and worry. In Kharkiv, a city that has been attacked over and over again for months, at least 6 people were hurt in the Christmas Day attacks. In Dnipropetrovsk, another city far from the fighting, 1 person was killed. These attacks showed that no place in Ukraine is safe from Russia. Leaders around the world quickly spoke out against the Christmas Day attacks. US President Joe Biden said they were terrible and wrong. British Labour Party leader Keir Starmer called them awful. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, speaking to his country that night, promised that Ukraine would never give up. These attacks only made the Ukrainian people more determined. They wouldn't be scared by Russia. They would keep fighting for their freedom, for their right to exist. Even though they have fewer soldiers and weapons, Ukrainians are fighting back with everything they've got. They're using everything they can, from advanced weapons from other countries to everyday drones they've changed for war. Their cleverness and toughness have amazed the world. Ukrainian forces have sent drones deep into Russia, attacking military bases and airfields. These attacks, while mostly symbolic, have shown that Ukraine can hit back at the aggressor's core. They've also shown weaknesses in Russia's air defenses. Near Kharkiv, Ukrainian forces have pushed back Russian attacks and caused many losses among the invading troops. Reports say that North Korean soldiers sent by their country to help Russia are among those killed. The Ukrainians are fighting for their own freedom and against tyranny everywhere. The fighting in Ukraine shows how strong the human spirit can be. Even when things look impossible, the Ukrainian people have chosen to resist, to fight for their own future. Their courage inspires the world. Countries around the world have come together to help Ukraine, giving billions of dollars in military and humanitarian aid. The United States especially has been a strong supporter, giving Ukraine modern weapons and intelligence. On Christmas Eve, the US said it would give Ukraine a $1 billion loan, using money taken from frozen Russian assets. This loan is part of a much bigger $20 billion plan to help Ukraine rebuild its economy and infrastructure. The US has also asked other countries to give more help to Ukraine, with both military supplies and money. The world has also strongly condemned Russia's actions in Ukraine. The United Nations General Assembly voted by a large majority to condemn Russia's invasion and demand that its troops leave. Many countries have placed strong sanctions on Russia, hurting its economy and its richest citizens. The world is watching Ukraine's fight for freedom very closely. What happens in this conflict will affect the future of Europe and the world. The Ukrainian people's courage and determination during this difficult time give us all hope. Section 5. The Bear's Burden. The war in Ukraine is hurting Russia too. The country is facing isolation from the rest of the world, economic problems, and growing unrest among its people. The Kremlin's control, which once seemed so strong, might be weakening. The Russian economy is struggling because of Western sanctions. The value of the ruble has dropped sharply, prices are rising quickly, and businesses from other countries aren't investing in Russia anymore. In October 2024, the Russian central bank had to raise its key interest rate to a huge 21% to try and stabilize the economy. The war is also making Russia's population problem worse. The country has been dealing with a declining population for years, and the war is making it worse. To try to fix this, the Nizhny Novgorod Oblast recently started giving 1 million rubles to mothers when they have a baby, a desperate attempt to encourage people to have more children. Even though the costs are rising, the Kremlin seems determined to continue the war in Ukraine. Russian officials keep repeating their demands from before the invasion, including that Ukraine must not join NATO and must limit its military. Ukraine and its Western allies will not agree to these demands, so a peaceful agreement seems unlikely anytime soon. Section 6. Ripples of conflict. The war in Ukraine is causing problems across the region and beyond. Tensions are growing between Russia and NATO, with each side blaming the other for causing trouble. The sinking of the Russian cargo ship Ursa Major in the Mediterranean Sea, while we don't know for sure what it was carrying, has made things even more tense. Russia has accused NATO of making Moldova into a supply center for the Ukrainian army, making people worry that the conflict could spread to another former Soviet country. Moldova, which has a breakaway region supported by Russia, has denied these accusations but is still being very careful. A suspected act of sabotage involving an underwater power cable between Finland and Estonia has also raised concerns about Russia's plans. While no one has said they did it, it reminds us that important infrastructure is vulnerable during wartime. The war in Ukraine shows us that we all live in a connected world. The conflict has already greatly affected global energy markets, food supplies, and the world order after the Cold War. We don't yet know the long-term effects, but one thing is sure: the world will never be the same. Section 7. The human cost. Behind all the political moves and military plans, there is a terrible human tragedy. Millions of Ukrainians have lost their homes and have had to flee their country or crowd into shelters. Thousands have been killed or hurt, their lives changed forever by the war. Families have been separated, with loved ones split up by the fighting or lost in the confusion. Children have seen horrible things that no child should ever see. The emotional scars of this war will last for generations. People around the world are working to provide humanitarian aid to those affected by the conflict. Aid groups are giving food, water, shelter, and medical supplies to those who need them. However, the needs are huge and the challenges are difficult. The war in Ukraine reminds us of the terrible human cost of conflict. It is a call for all of us to work for peace, understanding, and healing. We must never forget the suffering of those caught in the middle of the fighting, and work to create a world where such terrible things never happen again. Section 8. Beacons of Hope. Even in the darkness and sadness, there are signs of hope. The strength and determination of the Ukrainian people inspire the world. Their courage during this terrible time shows the power of the human spirit. Regular people have picked up weapons to defend their country, showing amazing bravery and love for their country. Volunteers are working hard to provide aid and support to those in need, showing incredible kindness and selflessness. The Ukrainian people are not giving up, and neither is the world. The world's continued support for Ukraine gives us more hope. The amount of aid, both physical things and emotional support, has been incredible. From governments to everyday people, people around the world are standing with Ukraine, sending a clear message that aggression and tyranny will not be accepted. The fight for Ukraine is a fight for freedom, democracy, and the right of all people to live in peace and safety. It is a fight that must be won for Ukraine and for the world. Section 9. A Spirit Unbroken. The war in Ukraine is a terrible event, but it is also a story of amazing resilience, courage, and hope. The Ukrainian people, facing a threat to their very existence, have chosen to resist, to fight for their right to live, for their freedom, for their future. They have shown the world what true courage, true sacrifice, and true love of country mean. They have reminded us that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can overcome things that seem impossible. We don't know how this war will end, but one thing is clear: the Ukrainian people will never be broken. Their spirit will not be put out. Their determination will not weaken. They will keep fighting for as long as it takes, for as long as they must, to secure a fair and lasting peace for themselves and for future generations.